for convening this meeting based on a request supported by nearly every member of the Security Council to address the grave situation in Gaza and further shocking developments. Allow me also to thank ASG Yancha for his report and also Mr. Raja Singham for his briefing. Mr. President, Israel is killing Palestine in Gaza. That is its objective. And there, over 2 million victims are enduring unbearable agony that the human mind can barely comprehend. We are not allowed to fail them any longer. We do not have the luxury to feel guilt or shame. We owe them to act now to stop this genocide. Mr. President, there is something undeniable. Israel does not care about what we say, what you say. It is obvious. The only thing that matters now is what we do. What will force Israel to change course is our ability to transform justified condemnation into just actions. And history will judge us all. We appreciate the description of almost all of you of the deepness of the pain and the tragedy that our people is enduring. While this is okay, it is not sufficient. You have to act. You have to do something about it. You have to stop it. Otherwise, this analysis and description does not mean anything if you do not do something to stop it. And you have tools available to you to do so. Mr. President, there is an international plan adopted by the International High-Level Conference in Palestine, co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France, that starts with ending the use of starvation as a weapon of war and ending the war on Gaza through a ceasefire, the release of the hostages and prisoners, a massive surge of humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people in coordination and leadership, in coordination with and leadership of the United Nations, and in line with humanitarian principles and the full withdrawal of Israel from Gaza. The plan further foresees the Palestinian National Authority resuming its sole governmental and security duties in the Gaza Strip with regional and international support, and Hamas handing over its weapons to the Palestinian National Authority in the context of an end to the war and in line with the objective of an independent Palestinian state. It sets forth an irreversible pathway to an independent and sovereign Palestinian state leading to shared peace and security and regional integration. Many of you referred to the results of that historic international conference about 2 weeks ago here in the General Assembly. If Israel's concerns was actually the end of Hamas rule or Hamas disarming, if its concern was actually security, it would have rallied this plan and should have been happy to see this plan adopted by almost the entire international community. Israel is seeking to cement its full military control over the Gaza Strip. and is prolonging this war not to end Hamas rule or to disarm it, but to prevent independent Palestinian statehood. That is the truth. The Israeli government has said that clearly over and over again. Somebody was referring to the statement of Prime Minister Netanyahu. He doesn't want to see a Palestinian governing body overlooking the affairs over Gaza, but somebody else, not Palestinians. He said it. It's not a secret. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. Israel proved long ago it was not concerned by the fate of the hostages. Look at the tens of thousands demonstrating in Tel Aviv and other cities, demanding immediate ceasefire and seriously concerned if this insanity to take place against our people in the Gaza Strip, then this is the execution or the death of the hostages, because that is the position of the families and the tens of thousands who are demonstrating in Tel Aviv. This latest decision is some more blatant demonstration of that. The Israeli government dehumanized and demonized Palestinians to such an extent that its genocide against them through mass killing and starvation, including of children, is not opposed in Israel by some, is only opposed in Israel by some brave voices. Israel proved long ago that its goal is the destruction of the Palestinian people through forced transfer and massacres to facilitate its annexation of our land. If some people believe what Prime Minister Netanyahu said yesterday and today, that there is a huge global lie, that there is no starvation in Gaza, and the two gentlemen from the leadership of the UN is also participating in spreading lies, then why don't you, the Security Council, go to the Security Council, take with you 100 journalists from your countries and other countries to verify exactly what is happening in Gaza. If he's so sure of this global conspiracy about the lie, let him prove it, invite you, allow you to go to the Gaza Strip and see exactly what is happening there. Take journalists with you so that you can verify exactly what is happening in Gaza. Because I think Mr. Netanyahu, in spite of all of the effort that he is putting with his government, he doesn't have credibility. He did not convince almost all of you and tens of countries outside this chamber from his narrative, and the narrative of his government, and the narrative of his foreign minister who came trying to manipulate a humanitarian story of a captive and the pain of that caused to that family, and he failed in trying to convince you to forget about the pain of the Palestinian people. Such illegal and immoral plans cannot be met with only outrage. That would not be sufficient. They require the mobilization of all the tools available to stop them, and we really appreciate the massive reaction from almost all countries in all corners of the globe, whether Arab and Muslim countries, or European countries, or countries that are sitting around this table, in condemning, as 5 of them stood outside this chamber in a brave way and principled way, not to please anyone, not to reward anyone, but to act on the basis of principles and conviction in condemning this plan by the Israeli government and demanding that they stop this plan, not to allow it to be implemented and to reconsider. Israel proved long ago it does not care about the Charter, international law, or the resolutions of this Council if not accompanied by consequences. These facts have led many to rightly wonder, how on earth is Israel still allowed to sit around this table and in these United Nations? If it was another country, you would have been imposing sanctions long time ago. Mr. President, countries around the world are adopting more and more measures to end any form of complicity and to advance accountability, and we appreciate these efforts. Country like Germany to decide not to send weapons to Israel to kill our people in Gaza, just only to use one example. All states should undertake such steps immediately. Of course, it would be wonderful if you implement your resolutions, and would be excessively wonderful if you adopt additional resolutions with measures. But if these are not possible, act in your national capacity. You have tools available to you, in addition to the tools available to the Security Council, but you have tools available to you in your national capacity. Many of you are using them. I urge others to use them, and to ask others to do many other things, including the recognition of the State of Palestine. All states should undertake such steps immediately, but in the face of such contempt and of 2 million lives being destroyed, of people, children, killed, maimed, displaced, starved, humiliated, mutilated, buried alive, burnt alive, abducted, tortured, orphaned, bereaved, shattered, torn apart, the measures taken do not match the level of the crimes committed so as to truly deter them. Mr. President, 2 million people continue to endure pain and agony that no human or nation should ever be forced to. They matter. Every single one of them matters, and no one matters more than them. The position of Palestine is unequivocal. We reject all harm to civilians, and our civilians are not less civilians. Their lives are not less worthy. We have never justified and always rejected harming Israeli civilians, killing them or taking them hostage. But we reject any attempt to justify the massacres committed by Israel against Palestinian civilians, or its abduction of thousands of Palestinians, or its starvation policy, or its displacement policy, or its annexation policy. There is no justification whatsoever for such brutality, such impunity. We have called for a ceasefire over and over again, and we were clear that Hamas must work with the mediators to remove any obstacle to excuse that would prolong this war. We appreciate the efforts by Egypt, Qatar, and the United States in this regard. We presented plans and proposals and cooperated with every effort to facilitate an agreement to end the war on our people, while reiterating clearly that the absence of such an agreement in no way allows Israel to pursue its war of atrocities against the Palestinian people, including these plans of trying to expel 1 million people from Gaza City, and to have a number of divisions of the Israeli army to to control all corners of the Gaza Strip. Neither a ceasefire agreement was reached, nor the massacres stopped. The devastation of our people, the annihilation of life in Gaza continues as we speak. Therefore, given Netanyahu's insistence to pursue this genocide, to destroy our people through death and displacement, to annex our land, to destroy Palestine, and with it, any chance for peace, this Council must act under Chapter 7 to deprive Israel of the means to pursue this war of atrocities. And I appreciate that a number of you refer to that explicitly, and others refer to it by implication. To hold it accountable for its crimes and to send an immediate international protection force to save the Palestinian people from certain death. There is no doubt that it is Israel's impunity that led to Israelis' insanity. And as the world said clearly, that nothing that Israel did before the 7th of October could justify harming Israeli civilians on the 7th of October. Nothing that Hamas did on the 7th of October can justify harming Palestinian civilians since. As long as Israel is above the law, it will act as an outlaw state. Mr. President, as they have for over 20 years since the Arab Peace Initiative, the region and Palestine are making the choice of peace. I said it loudly and clearly last few days ago in my statement that Ambassador Samuel referred to. In spite of the pain, in spite of the hardship, in spite of the insanity, in spite of people are not maybe thinking logically, we're not losing our minds or allowing our heart to dictate our decisions. We extend our hand in the direction of peace. We accept the declaration that was adopted by the majority of nations during that historic conference on the two-state solution. And we urge those who have not joined to send their letters to the two co-chairs, Saudi Arabia and France, declaring their commitment and abiding by the declaration of the 19 leaders of this conference, the two co-chairs and the 17 co-chairs of the round tables. Peace is much better for everyone than war. We don't need no more wars. We need to stop the killing, the occupation, devastation, hostages, prisoners. We need to respond to the call of millions of people in all corners of the globe, in all capitals, who are saying, peace now, ceasefire now, release of hostages and prisoners now, stop the starvation, send food and medicine and water up to scale to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, allow for the reconstruction of Gaza, allow for the implementation of the two-state solution by beginning with ending this illegal occupation, the independence of the state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital, and therefore to have the two-state solution as a reality on the ground. This option is much better than the option of what Netanyahu and his government are planning to do against our people in the Gaza Strip, as if what's happening to them is not enough. They want to add more devastation, more agony, more pain. They want to erase them from the face of earth. And we will not allow them to do that, and you should not allow them to do that. We are willing to work with the US administration, Saudi Arabia, and France, and the members of this council and other regional and international partners to bring this war on our people to an end now. To end the bloodshed and the suffering now and once and for all. To achieve freedom and shared peace, security and prosperity. We have a duty to act and cannot waver. Your actions today will determine the fate of millions of people tomorrow, at least those who would have survived by then, and the fate of our region for generations to come. And I thank you very much, Mr. President.
Despite some extraordinary and brazen language and statements we heard here, I will, however, attempt to address the supposed reason for the convening of this meeting. On Thursday night, Israel's Security Cabinet approved the Prime Minister's proposal to defeat the Iran-backed Hamas terrorist organization. This is the same organization responsible for the October 7th attack, currently holding 50 hostages under unimaginable conditions and remaining the sole source of suffering for the population in Gaza. The IDF is preparing to take control of Gaza City while ensuring humanitarian assistance flows to civilians outside combat zones and away from the reach of Hamas. This is not conquest. Israel has no plans or desire to permanently occupy Gaza. This is liberation from a brutal terror regime. As our briefer stated earlier, I wish to reiterate the principles, the 5 clear principles that the Israeli Security Cabinet adopted for concluding the war. 1, the disarming of Hamas. 2, the return of all our hostages, both living and deceased. 3, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip. 4, Israeli security control in the Gaza Strip. 5, the establishment of a non-Israeli peaceful civil administration governed neither by Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. This is the only way to ensure a better future for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it clear. Israel's goal is not to take over Gaza, but to free Gaza from Hamas and enable a peaceful government to rise in its place. This is the path to stability. This is the path to peace. Hamas's repeated refusal to agree to ceasefire arrangements, together with the horrific images of Eviatar David and Rom Braslavsky, exposing yet another aspect of the organization's monstrosity, make it clear that Hamas will not relinquish its control over Gaza through peaceful means. Nonetheless, despite a broad international consensus that Hamas cannot remain in power, and despite clear evidence of its refusal to give up control, parts of the international community continue to oppose Israel's efforts to act against Hamas. This position is both contradictory and difficult to reconcile with the stated goal of ending Hamas's rule. Some who criticize Israel make sure to call for the unconditional release of the hostages merely to clear their conscience. But how can one ignore the fact that Hamas is exploiting the hostages and the Gazan population to maintain its position, benefiting from attempts to pressure Israel and from the willingness of some countries to recognize a Palestinian state? As Secretary of State Rubio said, talks with Hamas fell apart on the day President Macron made the unilateral decision that he's going to recognize the Palestinian state. Those messages, largely symbolic in their minds, actually have made it harder to get peace and harder to achieve a deal with Hamas. As was mentioned before, Hamas itself has even admitted this. The pressure should not be placed on Israel, who suffered the most horrific attack against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, but on Hamas, in order to demand the immediate and unconditional release of our hostages. Yet, in a complete inversion of morality and logic, this body has urgently convened to chastise the one democracy in the Middle East, the nation standing on the front line of the battle against radical extremist terrorism. If this body truly believes in justice and morality, then let your urgency be directed where it belongs, towards dismantling Hamas, towards freeing our hostages, toward ensuring that such atrocities never happen again. Anything less is not urgency, it is hypocrisy. I thank you, Mr. President.